My name is Kenneth Mohammed. I'm a UC Solutions engineer and I work for Diversified. Firepower, probably 2 or 3 years now. I typically deploy firewalls from time to time, typically to set up VPNs for remote users and also, just in general security. So I do a number of use cases. The customer, with the pandemic and everything, the customer really didn't have a VPN solution for their remote users. So we had to go in and deploy some high availability cluster of firepower. And I did and set up single sign-on with SAML authentication and multi-factor authentication. I like that you can get really granular as far as your access lists and access control, and then just put everything into a nice, neat little package as far as configuration. I was formerly a command line guy with the ASA, and I was a little nervous about dealing with a GUI interface versus the command line, but after I did my first deployment, I got a lot more comfortable with doing it GUI-based. Well, we deploy for other organizations. I don't work on our own corporate firewalls, but I do believe we have some, but I don't work on those. But it definitely improved it. Again, it enabled my clients to have remote users, thousands of them, and they're able to connect seamlessly. They don't have to come into the office. They can come in, just go home, connect to the VPN, log on, and do what they need to do. I'm not a big fan of the FDM that comes with the firepower. I found out that you need to use the Firepower Management Center, the FMC, in order to manage the firewalls a lot better. You can get a lot more granular with the configuration in the FMC versus the FDM that comes out of the box with it. FDM is like firepower for dummies, and a lot of things. I found myself to be limited in what I can do configuration-wise versus what I can do in the FMC. However, if I just have a small deployment, FMC is more if you have 100 firewalls to manage, right? So I think they need to come out with something better to manage the firewall versus the FDM that comes out of the box with it, because that set me back about 2 weeks fooling around with it. I've done a Palo Alto before, and I think I did a Juniper once, but mostly ASAs and firepowers. Well, naturally, I prefer Cisco stuff. They just kind of, firewalls, and that's why the customer wanted Palos, so that's what I had to do. I had to figure it out. So I kind of learned something new, but my preference is Cisco firewalls. And I just like, the granularity of the configuration. I've never had any customers complain after I put it in, hey, we got hacked, or there's some, some holes in the firewall, any type of security vulnerabilities, malware, ransomware, anything like that. You can tighten up the enterprise real good security-wise. I mean, everything's GUI based now, so to me, it's not really a difference. And again, the Palos and the Junipers, I don't know what improvements they made, because those was over probably 5 or 6 years ago that I did those. So I can't even really speak to that. As far as return on investment, I would imagine there is some, as far as for the users, as far as saving on commuting costs. You don't have to come in the office, gas prices, et cetera, et cetera. You can stay home and work and connect to the enterprise from anywhere in the world, essentially. On-prem. The last one I did was 701. It was complex because that was my first time actually doing a firepower. Like I did ASAs prior, no problem. So, you know, again, I had to get used to the GUI and the order of deploying things. Like I had to reset it to factory defaults several times because, you know, I messed something up, and then, you know, I had to get with Cisco TAC for them to help me say, okay, you need to default it and start over again. But now going forward, I know, you know, I need to deploy the FMC first, and then you deploy the firepowers and tell it where the FMC is, and then it connects, and then you can go in and configure it. I had it backwards, and, you know, it was a big thing, so I just basically had to keep resetting it. So it was a good learning experience, though, and thankfully I had a patient customer. They're always great. They're always great to me. You know, they're, you know, responsive, very knowledgeable. You know, they offer suggestions. You know, tell you what you need to do going forward. You know, a lot of helpful hints and things like that. So it was good because I had to work with them a lot on this past deployment. So, but now I know, now I can go in and probably do it by myself without TAC's help. I'm gonna go with a 9. Nothing's perfect, but yeah. I've not heard anything back from my customers, so I'm assuming once it's in, and I mean, it's not gonna break. It's a HA pair. You know, my customer doesn't really know too much about it. I don't know that they would know if one of them went down because it fails over to the other one. I showed them, you know, I demonstrated to them, look, this is how it fails over. If I turn one off, it fails over. VPN doesn't disconnect, everything's good. Users don't know that the firewall failed over unless they're actually sitting there looking at any connect or whatever. So it was great. I don't think they know, so I'll wait for them to call me and see if they know if something's broken or not. Good, it's stable. Like I said, I didn't hear anything. No news is good news. It scales because you can deploy a cluster. I think you could have up to 16 firepowers in a cluster, I believe, from the class I learned yesterday. I only had 2 in that particular cluster, so it scales up to 16. So if you have a multi-tenant situation, or if you're offering SaaS or, you know, something like that, cloud-based firewall services or whatever, then, you know, it's great that it can scale up to 16. Just because I don't like the management thing that comes out of the box with it, the FDM, I'll give it an 8, because that was a real pain dealing with until we said, okay, let's get them an FMC. And, you know, and that was by TAC's suggestion, actually. It's like, you really need FMC, you can't, the FDM is really trash. So